Hoi, Hafa Edai, everybody. We're taking a few minutes to allow people to trickle in. But in the meantime, enjoy the sounds that you're hearing. Feel free to use the chat to greet each other. You might even unmute for a second and say hi or greet us in your language or languages.
What's good?
Half a day.
Half a day.
We want to let you know that tonight we have live captioning. And if that would be helpful for you, you should be able to access that by moving your mouse to the bottom of the Zoom screen and pressing the icon that says CC Live Transcript. And if you're tuned in tonight on Facebook or on YouTube, the caption should be appearing automatically on the screen. Hoi, Hafa Eddai Leah. For those that are just trickling in now, we are saying that we are using this time to greet each other, maybe in our native languages. Feel free to unmute for a second and say hi. We're just allowing people a couple minutes to trickle in. And you can also use this time to check out our community conversation board that we've created tonight using a website called Miro. We're dropping the link for that in the chat now. And we're doing that because we're spanned across 3 different platforms and tuning in from all over the world, from Micronesia to the east and west coast of Turtle Island. And we want to hear from each other. And even though we're all in our little Zoom boxes, we're all in our own little blocks, maybe we could create the feeling of being in a block party. So we've asked some questions on the board, but we also invite you to share your thoughts, your feelings, doodles, images, and the link is in the chat. The song that you just heard is a special collaboration between myself, Dakota, and a Dene dancer by the name of Natalie Benali. And so you were hearing the beautiful language of Dene Bazad. That was her mom.
Voices speaking from the altar where the rosaries are found. Foreign to a young Hadza whose soul has been around. Does the spirit care for difference or does it distance exhibit unity? Because beauty means specific characteristics of creator's creativity. A recognition of its precision is proximity to accomplish the mission of whole conscious divinity. Synonymous infinity. Living these simplicities with discipline. I listening to really see gold beating.
Hafa Edai to see Noel Kitagwa, who's joining us on the Facebook.
Before I am careless with my actions, I let go of all judgments like a soul shining on the globe. I cannot withhold the light within my soul. I write with all I know, the life force of the flow. I'm so blessed. Surrender to the sign if I ever feel stressed. I'm so blessed.
Feel free to drop something in the chat that makes you feel blessed.
I'm so blessed. Surrender to the sign if I ever feel stressed. I'm so blessed. Surrender to the sign if I ever feel stressed. And I cannot be whitened, Paralyzed or frightened by a tendency to measure me by legacies of white men. You don't know who I am, warrior from the islands, illocal Squahantinian, Luther, Ghanaians, and Saipan. Made an Actulati, invented out to a two-pack. True fact, scientists still don't know how we do that. Sailing a new path, and I packed my Cantupa, guided by the stars and the sounds of the moon's chants. You can hear melodies whispered in the ether, burning sage meter and copal mixed with cedar. Give thanks the Manana have chosen me as a speaker. Stay open to the guidance, let Creator be my leader. Stay grounded in the ancient ways, navigating the sacrament, kicking it while rapping, revitalizing our chanting, flowing free poetry, socking grow a tree of passion, sailing open seas, tying ropes of these enchantments. I'm so blessed, surrender to the sign if I ever feel stressed. I'm so blessed, surrender to the sign if I ever feel stressed. What is survival when the map's in the Bible and holding on to tradition is suicidal? Ancestors your rivals, so the wind blows, then a generation of lighter skin tone. The fighter syndrome means more death. Resistance is persistence towards more breath. War is meant to decimate the population, and November's how you meditate through occupation. Our women sing songs to breathe on. What happened to our imaginations? We weave our beliefs in the leaves of a green palm and plant our dreams in the seeds of the tree strong. Please, Wahan, take care of the environment. Conspire with the sinus so we heal us from the viruses. Chant melodies and medicines the ancestors supply us with. I pray that every line I spit will keep our inner fire.
And if you're just joining us now, we're just taking a couple minutes to allow our people to trickle in. And in the meantime, we invite you to participate in our community conversation board, which is happening via the Miro that's been dropped into the chat. And also welcome y'all to say hello to each other, unmute for a second, make some noise, dance around, have a stretch, grab some water, stay hydrated.
I'm so blessed, surrender to the sign if I ever feel stressed. I'm so blessed, surrender to the sign if I ever feel stressed. I'm so blessed, surrender to the sign if I ever feel stressed. I'm so blessed, surrender to the sign if I ever feel stressed. I'm so blessed, surrender to the sign if I ever feel stressed. I'm so blessed, surrender to the sign if I ever feel stressed. I'm so blessed.
Hoi, Hafa Edda, everybody. I hope you all are feeling blessed. Hafa Edda is one of my favorite things in the world to say. It's the greeting in my people's language, and it literally means, what's up, people who look after each other? And I know so many of you all in this room tonight and tuned in and listening are people who look after each other, people who look after your families, people who look after the lands that you live in, people who look after future generations. And I just want to take a second to greet you all and greet your ancestors, to greet all of the lands that we're calling in from. I am Dakota Camacho, and I am the convening artist for tonight's event, which is the beginning of an unfolding of a short film project by myself and Futsum Sagai called Etak, an untraditional Micronesian Navigation Chant. If you're just tuning in now and you would like to have live captioning, you can get that by going to the bottom of the Zoom screen and clicking on the button that says CC Live Transcript. And if you're tuning in from Facebook or on YouTube, the captions are appearing on the bottom of the screen already. As a Matau or tomorrow person, something that is very important to me is beginning in a good way. And as many of us know, before we go into the land or out into the waters, we greet the ancestors and we give thanks for them. We ask for the permission to move through the space. And I would like to imagine that tonight we are all in one gigantic sackman, one gigantic canoe. And the name of this canoe is Zoom. And inside of this canoe, we are venturing through cyberspace. And I would like to pay my acknowledgments and respect to the ancestors of this cyberspace, to every one of your ancestors that are of the people that are tuning in right now, and to all of the ancestors of the lands that we're tuning in from. Tonight, me and my sister are calling in from the hill that is known as Lashutseed, which gets its name from the color of the yellow-green leaves of the cedar trees. And this hill is located in the lands of the Dok Olch, or the Duwamish, who are the First Nations of this area. And this land is also culturally significant to the Suquamish, the Muckleshoot, and the Tulalip peoples. Right now, to the south of us is this beautiful mountain called Dakobid. And behind us, to the east, is a lake that they call Eating Monster. And to the south, and also to the southwest of us, is this river called Dok Olch, which feeds into the Salishan, this beautiful body of water over here. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that this protocol, this beginning, is not just something that my people do. It's also, as I have learned, the protocol of the Coast Salish peoples, whose land that we are on today. And I'm sure that no matter where we're at in the world, there is some kind of similar or conversational protocol. And so I would like to take a moment to honor that. And one of the things that I've learned from the Coast Salish is that there's two parts of this. One is acknowledging the ancestors, which we are going to do tonight by the singing of an ancestral song. And the second part of it is also to make a material gift. And that gift comes from our hearts. It comes out of the generosity of our love and respect for the lands in which we live in. And so for those of you that are tuning in to us tonight, who are in Dok Olch or Duwamish territory, I will invite you to make a donation to the Real Rent campaign, to the Duwamish, and also to sign their petition for their federal recognition. One thing that I hear over and over again from Native peoples when we do land acknowledgements is that it often doesn't lead to, and it's not connected to, concrete actions to get Native people's land back. And one thing I know, because I'm an Indigenous person, if our sovereignty is respected, we will take care of everybody that is here. So when we say land back, we mean we want to be able to live our ancestral traditions of living in a good way and generating positive relationships with all of creation. So I would invite you all, whatever land that you are calling in from tonight, that you're listening into tonight, to spend some time thinking about what your material contribution is going to be to changing the power dynamics that currently exist so that we can honor Indigenous sovereignty. The second piece of the protocol that we're going to honor tonight is inviting us to take a moment to communicate with the ancestors of the land that we're in, to give our gratitude and our respect, to communicate to the ancestors of Ohlone territory, whose lands host the Zoom headquarters that are allowing us to have this conversation in this way, and to tune into the ancestors embedded inside of all of the technological devices that we're using in order to be connected tonight. So really, there's quite a lot of ancestral energetic power that is making it possible for us to have this beautiful gathering. And this small offering of song is one way of living in reciprocity. So I will invite you all to treat this moment as an opportunity to be in resonance with your ancestors, to be in resonance with the ancestors of the lands that you're in. And for this to be something more than a performance, something other than a performance of a song, but really a vibrational experience of your breath and of what is sacred to you. The song I'm going to sing tonight was taught to me, and it's my rendition of a song by Jeremy Cepeda, who's a good friend of mine, and the lyrics are in Neni Hamzu. We honor and respect you all, our ancestors. We honor and respect you all, those that came before us. We honor and respect our relatives and all that came before us. So I invite you to engage with this moment in a way that makes your spirit and your ancestors feel in line with your integrity.
Inneni hamsu man yainen mami Inneni hamsu man yelun mami Inneni iman mofon night we have Inneni iman mofon night we have Inneni hamsu man yainen mami Inneni hamsu man yelun mami Inneni man mofon night we ham Inneni man mofon night we ham Inneni hamzu man yainen mami Inneni hamzu man yelun mami Inneni iman mofon night we have Inneni man mofon night we have
Awesome, everyone. Well, if we were here together in person, I would invite us all to take a second and turn to somebody next to us and just introduce ourselves for a moment. And we're going to do that tonight for those of us in the Zoom room through a breakout room. And so you are going to be invited to share your name, something that you know about your ancestors, something that you love about who you are, about your people, and where you're calling in from. And we're only going to do this for a short moment. So try and keep it to about 1.5 minutes each. It'll be a good way to practice, sharing space and time with each other. So if you could share something that you like about yourself, where you're calling in from, something that you love about your people. And Zoom Wizard, if you can take us away and beam everybody into their space, just like we were in Star Trek. And don't you worry, for those of you that are tuning in to us on the live stream, because we have something really quite beautiful to share with you as well. The Eh-tack project is something that is a part of a bigger project. And that project is called Mali'i. And I would like to take a moment to share with you all one of the songs from the Mali'i project. And this is a song that is in the same line of an untraditional Micronesian navigation chant. And I'm going to drink some water and start the song.
Nahu ipalaw ni Tan, inanan linat la ihinago ni Tan, hagen fort, ekunuki sinanananghu, itam datahu, ilani tasi idata ni sakman ni fafanog when ilina la itasi, lahin pontan, ekunuki linai laihu fan ekunuki famagu umitsu. my canoe as I flower through the streams, modeling how mis antepasados so it seems. Woe is me for finding out the foe of me is the nature of creator whose cravings vocally express poetry. Hopefully I'll find my lifeline inside the time I write rhymes while blood's pulsing through my drum beat. There's one thing above nothing. There's nobody that I won't be. Menos son nadie, yo soy nadie, homie. Luke gas past the sky, walking horizons. Catwalking with Africans, Zapotecs, Crees, Jews, and Mayans. Son of a gun, I'm the sun. I become one with the lions, and I'd be lying if I said I was on Lion's Rock, lying on the tabletop, because I'm of native stock. And yes, I'm made of rock, formulating coy sand plans from where our civilized cradles rock, like Papa Dante or May's lot, or Mateo to my sacred ancient thoughts, from formerly colored fairies that play with hot lava. Do not bother with the drama, my obsidian armor is harder. Creation stories, the glory of one of Pele's daughters, so I'm melee. Hey, I lie. Offer at Dila, Lahids and Famala and Macta we had Gahu and I always rep the south end. Dakota es mi nombre, Tacoma is the mountain. I'm sailing in the sailish and navigating what my sound is. You know that I will own this. I was born near the Snohomish. Swim the fish to Swinomish to the harbors where the oaks live. Ciphering in eclipse and moonlight as Hidmo closes. Ancient lyric spirits dancing in canoes upon the ocean. Tying tight song lines between coconuts and cedar trees. Creating famine native land. Chief Seattle said we can't eat money. We deeply breathe in Temescar, brew the sage and drink the tea. Klatu Kamati Miga Maasi sign and Glalo de Kutli. A Pontan Colonel birthed in a Turtle Island metropolis. Since time immemorial, this is where the Duwamish live. Displaced kids reclaiming our red paint and so hip hop with it. I honor it with glacier flows. I'm dropping in. Awesome. Welcome back, everybody, from your little breakout rooms. I hope that you're feeling nice and connected and proud of who your people are. If you feel inspired, you're invited to keep contributing to the community conversation board throughout the event. It will be great to hear where you're calling in from and who your ancestors are and, you know, something that you love about yourself. That's one of the questions in the community conversation board. What's something you love about your people? I want to take a second to thank all the people who made the event possible tonight. This program was made possible by, of course, our co-presenters, Monaeka Flores, Ojeya Cruz Banks, Gabriel Teodros, Vince Diaz, Chanupa Hanska Luger, and a couple of our tech wizards, Deanne, who's my sister, and Ginger, and also by our community partners, the National Performance Network, For Culture, and API Chaya. I want to do a special shout out to API Chaya for their support in getting our event captioned. This organization is so important to the social justice ecosystem in the Pacific Northwest. They are an organization that serves survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking through providing direct service, community education, and community organizing. Their annual gala is coming up next month, and I want to encourage you all to check it out because it would be good to contribute to an organization that is doing powerful work in our communities. And also, if you do check it out, there will be a special premiere of a new dance film project that I am creative directing alongside Futsum Sagai, who is the cinematographer of the Eh-tack film premiering tonight. Tonight's event is also sponsored and supported in part by Settlement, an indigenous digital occupation conceived by Chanupa Hanska Luger in tandem with the Mayflower 400 programming in Plymouth, UK, and is supported by Arts Council England through the National Lottery Projects Grant and Department of Culture, Media and Sport through the Cultural Development Fund. And I want to do a humongous shout out to Ginger and the whole team behind Settlement for initiating this International Indigenous Contemporary Indigenous Arts Festival that this event that you're tuned in tonight is nested inside of. And so now I'm going to pass it over to Chanupa to introduce himself and share more about the Settlement Festival. Thank you so much, Chanupa. Make some noise.
Dosha Maragua, Dishkagna Hudosha, Nitue Hudosha. I'm Chanupa Hanska Luger. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Dakota. I'm really honored to be here amongst such brilliant and beautiful people. So I thank you for bringing us all together. The Settlement Project was a project kind of built out of the strange world of a 400th anniversary of colonialism in some sort of space where that's normal. I didn't know how to kind of respond or react to the invitation to participate. And really my big concern was the effect of kind of like looking at asking Indigenous people to become the Indigenous voices as individuals when we recognize we are a part of community, that we belong to place rather than place belonging to us, that we are only as strong as those who we stand with and stand aside, you know, and we know when to get out of the way also. And that was kind of my idea as far as working with Settlement, was like, how do I get out of the way and open up the opportunity for a broad kind of experience around Indigenous voices and people coming together to represent our voice, you know, so that it's not on the shoulders of an individual or even a specific nation. And I wanted to build complexity. The Indigenous experience in the popular culture is under an umbrella. It's homogenous, and yet there was so much beauty and complexity in our diversity. And that's what I wanted to bring to the table for this project. And wanted to expand the idea of Indigenous and where these lands are that the colonial powers of the UK kind of affected in the last 400 years, not to specifically speak about the Mayflower and its interaction with the Wampanoag and other communities on the East Coast. So that was kind of my effort into this. So I'm happy to we chose Dakota because of his shocking good looks, and found out that he can sing and move people in ways beyond that. So we're really kind of happy that this all kind of coalesced and became something. So thank you all very much. I'm grateful to be here.
Beautiful. Migai Ma'asi, Chanupa. Well, I want to take a second to introduce you all to Eh-tack and the film that we're going to experience tonight, and why it is that I've invited all of these different people with such beautiful and brilliant and different experiences to come and share about their work. Eh-tack is a Micronesian word. It's a word that's shared in many different languages. And it is, and if I get this wrong, Vince is going to correct me later. So I want to make sure that I get this right. It loosely translates as moving islands and a form of triangulation. And it is one of the ways that I've been thinking about what it means to be an Indigenous person in the diaspora. Somebody who has a strong connection to my ancestry, to my culture, and to my people, and has since I was a young person, and also who is deeply rooted in my relationship to this community that raised me here in the South End of Seattle. And how do we navigate this? And my kind of sneaky suspicion is that all of these forces are constantly coalescing and moving around us. And one of the ideas that was actually brought to my attention through Vince's work, in some ways of seeing navigation, we are inside of the canoe and the universe moves around us. And so I've been thinking a lot about what is the spiritual significance of being this mapped out Chamorro person who is born and raised in Coast Salish territory, who is rooted in a culture that has also been deeply influenced by Black cultural production. You know, there's a lot of debate about what our dance is, but I think that our national dance is like the cha-cha, which is actually a Caribbean African dance form that was created in the Caribbean. And if I get that wrong, Ojeya is going to correct me, which I would love. I love being corrected by my peers. And I just think there's something about that. There's something about how things are not so neat as colonization, I think, would like to pretend that they can be. And I'm interested in that. I'm interested in unearthing that, and also of living in reciprocity to all the cultures and traditions and lineages that have informed what it means for me to be on this planet in this moment in time, in this way. And so I invited this group of people to share about their work, because to me, these people are like those moving islands. Their work in the world are what is rooting me to my understanding of what it means to be an artist, of what it means to be an Indigenous person. And so with that, I would like to pass the floor over to somebody who I love absolutely, and who has guided me on this journey in more ways than one. And you see my head turning this way to make sure that the tech computer isn't going to trip as I figure out how to share the screen. But I'm going to pass it over to Ojeya Cruz Banks to introduce herself. And Ojeya, just give me a second to pull up your video. Thank you.
Hafade, Kiora, Nangadef, Arabahadi. How y'all doing? It's really good to be here this evening to share this time with all of you. When Dakota and I were talking about this project, I was really excited to see what he was going to manifest, and always know that there's a real divine sort of guidance that leads him as an artist. And so I'm just happy to be in the cipher, in the sacred cipher of tonight. What I'd like to do is start with a short video, and then I'll introduce myself even more. Okay, so I am the daughter of African Americans who are from Alabama, Kentucky, Louisiana. My mothers of many generations were born on the island of Guahan. I am a Black Chamorro. I am currently living on the ancestral land of the Shawnee people in Ohio. And there I was dancing on a place called Spring Valley. I am a professor of dance at the university, or Denison University, I should say. And one of the areas of my work include the sacred rituals of Indigenous practice, the chant, the music, the dance. I am really interested in how the sacred triangle, as I call them, are involved in the dismantling of white supremacy, how we engage in the reclamation of our Indigenous languages, how we engage in the quieting of colonial noise that often distracts us from our truest purpose, and for finding ourselves grounded in our ancestral legacy and ancestral knowledge. I write about the way in which chant, for example, engages in somatic decolonization. So when we put our hearts and our bodies into the songs that remind us of our mother tongue, when it holds us in a place where we are feeling the sacredness of our islands, of our homelands, that we begin the healing process. One of the things that I'm feeling very touched about in this moment with you all is the way in which this gathering really feels like a practice of Indigenous love, of Indigenous alliance. I should also say that I spent over a decade living in the South Pacific in Aotearoa, New Zealand, where I got a chance to build relationships and networks with my Maori brothers and sisters and the rest of the incredible Pacifica community in New Zealand. There I studied the evolution of Maori contemporary dance, particularly with people like Louise Potiki Bryant, who is Indigenous to Te Waipunamu, which is the South Island where I lived, but also the Atamita Dance Company, which is based on the North Island. And it was really in New Zealand that I started to understand the way in which the Black aesthetic permeates Oceania. And through the encouragement and the mentorship of the late legendary Pacific Island scholar Tarasia Teiwa, who planted a beautiful seed within me and many, many, many people, but particularly encouraged a reclamation of the Black Pacific relationship, the sacred relationship, one of cultural borrowing, the one of remembering, and Indigenous connection. And so one of the things that I've been really interested in the work that I've been discussing with Dakota is how there is a Black Pacific whanaungatanga, a sense of family and togetherness and connection that's played out in a lot of contemporary Pacific culture. And this is really important to kind of grounding who I am as a Black Chamorro woman, really taking the opportunity to look at how those identities speak to one another, and how I'm able to lift up, empower, bring to the center both of my ancestral lineages. So I'm excited to be here tonight. Many blessings and love to all of you.
Hafaday, Guahu, C, Monaeka Flores, Nake, please, if you can call me Nake. I'm here in Guahan or Guam, and which is an island in the Northern Marianas, or Lagos Dangani. And I send warm greetings to everybody, to all of you in your homelands, and thank Dakota and the Settlement Collective for the invitation to be here and share the sacred space with all of you. I'm deeply honored to be here today. I am here to talk, I want to talk a little bit about my work in the community and our collective work really against demilitarization and for demilitarization and for decolonization. Taylor Texan is a collective that I'm a part of, and we are working really hard to push back against the construction operation of a live fire training range complex, which is in a sacred area known as Tailalu. And the Texan is an ancient village, one of several ancient village sites here in Guam. And the firing range will be over our Northern Lens Aquifer. With the relocation of Marines from Okinawa to Guam, we're going to see the destruction of over 1,000 acres of pristine limestone forest. We'll see the withdrawal of over 1 million gallons of water a day from our main fresh water source, the Northern Lens Aquifer. And we're looking at close to 7 million ammunitions a year fired over that source as well. Guahan is occupied 30% by the US military, which has a long history here of contamination and destruction of our sacred sites and the defilement and desecration of our ancestors. And so we're fighting really hard to protect the Texan and fight against this firing range. I also come from Anapsan. My family is the Familing Cabeza clan, and I have lineage to our ancestral land in Hanapsan, which we also lost, us and several Chamorro families lost several hundred hectares of land from an area known as Talagi or Turagi in Anapsan. And this is a sign, actually, we have to ask the military base permission to access our ancestral land. And it's a dehumanizing experience every year to go to the Air Force and ask for permission to go to our family land. And then we drive through the base gate. We see these guards with these huge guns, and we have to show them, flash this ID. But once we get down to the area known as Talagi, there's a sign there that says private property, DoD personnel, dependents, contractors, and employees are not allowed beyond this point. There's definitely some sense of, it feels good to see this sign. Unfortunately, it doesn't always stop the Department of Defense from entering our private lands. And then the picture next to that sign is the walk in from the base toward our family land in Anapsan. Some of you might have seen Anapsan in the Netflix movie Operation Christmas Drop, which is a deeply troubling and offensive movie for some of us, especially because it looks like they filmed some of it on the private land side, the Chamorro land side of the base. The whole base is Chamorro lands that are currently occupied by the military. And so now I'm going to talk a little bit about my creative work, and I really thank Dakota for inviting me. With Etak, I decided to share some of my work about seafaring and about water. And so the image on the left is a piece called Malagnaputi and Tasi, and it's actually a part of the personal collection of Tina Taitino Delisle, a friend and mentor of mine, and her husband, Vince Diaz, who's also here tonight. And they're, Nicole, her daughter, is one of my best friends. And this is a piece, we have, one of our ancestors, we've had evidence of ancestors buried in canoes and evidence of ancestors buried with body ornamentation. So there's some ancient pottery patterns in here. The beads are made with local clay from Guahan. And the piece on the right is called Ihinanauta, Our Journey. And this is a piece about climate change, about the revitalization of our lost seafaring tradition and the relationships with other indigenous Micronesian islanders that are necessary for us to reimagine and reinvigorate a lot of these lost practices. And again, you'll see there's some ancient pottery patterns here. Each one of these has 13 of those pottery patterns to represent the 13 cycles of the moon in our lunar calendar. And then the piece after this is called Itinatuhan, our beginning. And this is a story of our creation. This is about our creation story. Fotna, or Fua, our creator, and her brother Ponten, who created everything around us, the sky, the sea, the land. And these are boats that kind of represent past, present, and future, or seed pods. And so the story goes that she turns her body into a rock and she opens up, and the first people emerge. And so technically we're all sort of lost Chamorros who've navigated all over the world. But the form on the left is like a canoe that opens up with these waves coming out. And then each of these boats also have, somebody lovingly calls them beba boats, or vagina boats, because there's some, it's a very sexually charged piece. It's a very queer piece, and it's a piece that was recently featured in the Gumagala zine, and it's a piece again about our creation story. We're one of the oldest settlements in the Pacific, but we're one of the longest colonized, and evidence of the length of our time here, over 3,000 years. Our only homelands, the Lagos Dengani and the Marianas, is our creation story, that we all came from this place. And so the last piece I want to share with you, I'm very excited to share, is called Hasu, which is like to think about or to remember. And again, it's a play on this idea of seed pods or vessels. That I got invited to the 9th International Indigenous Art Gathering at Taronga Waiwai Marae in Waikato, Aotearoa, in 2019. And I was very honored to be there with Indigenous artists from all over. I was the only person from Micronesia represented there, but I found these nails there at the hongi pit, the firing pit, and they're 13. But they also serve to represent colonization and Christianity specifically, and how missionaries destroyed canoes so that Chamorros couldn't escape to other islands. They burnt the canoes. And the 3 skulls represent, again, past, present, future, or seeds, so that we can remember that we're carrying our ancestors forward. So it's a piece about cultural survivorship as well. And so those are just a few of my works. Really so honored to share the space with you. I've never shown this one piece before in any public setting. So I wanted to share this work for the first time here with Dakota and all of you today. So thank you all so much. Sanamasi, Sizasmasi.
And that was beautiful. Hey, what's up, y'all? My name is Gabriel Teodros. From Seattle, from the South End, from the same neighborhood that Dakota and Dee are in right now. My people are from Ethiopia. I'm a hip hop artist, a writer. I dabble in speculative fiction, and I'm also a DJ on a radio station here in Seattle called KXP. I first met Dakota when they were in middle school. We were doing a workshop. Me and my brother Kings, as a part of Abyssinian Creole, we're doing a workshop on hip hop as a tool for liberation. And there was a very young Dakota in the audience who just asked the most brilliant questions. And we pretty much stayed connected ever since. I feel really lucky to have been able to watch Dakota grow up. So that's what brought me here. And I'd like to share a song with y'all. I'm learning so much just listening to everybody, by the way, though. So this is awesome. I feel like I'm meeting Dakota's teachers from different parts of their world that they be traveling to that I don't always get to see. You know what I mean? So this is really cool. The song I'm about to share with y'all is something's unreleased. It's a song called Coffee and Sage. And it's about the history of Black and Indigenous co-resistance that's existed here in Seattle from generations before we were around. You know, these are stories that were told to me by my friends, my peers, but also some elders that I know, my father, you know, and it's just all in here. If you want to hit play, Dakota, that'd be awesome. Yeah, I'll say some more after the video.
our legacy to resist, our legacy to exist. This is one of countless stories of Black and Indigenous survival. Yeah. This is post-apocalyptic. I represented it so many times. It keeps burning. We keep firefighting genocide for 500 plus years of a pandemic here. I'm realizing this is cycle and it's very clear. Masked up like Zapatistas for the land is life. If we don't find a balance, and trust me, we won't survive. Old ways die for the young ones to thrive. It comes back around. We're learning from the tribes of Suquamish, Duwamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot nations. Puyallup, Macabre, Snoqualmie, and the Chehalis. There's too many to name, but all who fight colonization. Northwest coast off the sea they call Salish. Shouts to Kalina for holding on to the language. And every elder who was kidnapped but managed to envision what you make generations ahead. With culture as a weapon, this is how I was led. A Black immigrant son, I know our freedom is one. With Indigenous liberation, right here we are from. Different circles of ceremony and ways we hold on. Burn sage, we roast coffee, they both keep me calm. A Black immigrant son, I know our freedom is one. With Indigenous liberation, right here we are from. The opposite end of the same officer's gun. Our legacy to resist, our legacy to exist. Black Panthers and AIM both taught us how to fight for a lot in occupation, united of all tribes. Free breakfast for the kids in the morning when the sun rise. A free clinic for the central and the south side. They came together when our elders got organized. We take for granted the gains they made when they unified. They gave us Daybreak Star and El Centro de la Raza. Remember when you sipping coffee sitting in that plaza? This was land reclamation just a generation ago. So many paid a toll and they had greater goals. There was war in our city and most just don't know. Imperfect as it was, they laid some groundwork to grow from. So learn some mistakes before you try to say you starting what was already in motion. Connect with your folks, this is a very old visionary struggle for home. And not a single one of us are gonna make it alone. A Black immigrant son, I know our freedom is one. With Indigenous liberation, right here we are from. Different circles of ceremony and ways we hold on. Burn sage, we roast coffee, they both keep me calm. A Black immigrant son, I know our freedom is one. With Indigenous liberation, right here we are from. The opposite end of the same officer's gun. Our legacy to resist, our legacy to exist. Our legacy to connect, our legacy to persist. Our legacy to resist, our legacy to exist. Shout outs to the station, big ups to Hollis, Footsum on the camera, the whole South End, Beacon Hill, the history of co-resistance, of our folks linking up for our liberation, for everyone that imagined a future they couldn't see in the life that they were in. They gave us all the gifts that we often take for granted now. Our folks have been connected for generations. They don't want us to remember though. That's why these stories are important. Our legacy to resist, our legacy to exist forever. Beacon Hill, Southside. Masks up.
Yeah, so we made that video for an event that I actually did with Dakota. We did not too long ago. It was a benefit for a coffee shop in our neighborhood called The Station. And the person who filmed that video, real impromptu, is Footsum, same person who filmed Dakota's Etak, which you're about to see. So I just wanted to shout him out. And yeah, I'll say some more later, but that's the introduction. Yep.
Hafideja and Casalelia Manco, everybody, Gualusi Vicente Diaz. Hafideja and Casalelia Manco, Gualusi Vicente Diaz, and Panene Pompe, Coke and Kausan Palcolo, Nan Wayne Pichi. I'm a Filipino Ponapean, born and raised on the island of Guam. And I consider Guam home, though for the last 20 years, I've been in the US Midwest teaching comparative, global and comparative Native studies Currently, I teach in American Indian Studies here in Minnesota, Makoche, at the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities, homeland of Dakota people. Could you put the slide, the first on Indigenous roots and routes, and then the next one. So I run a program called the Native Canoe Program, and it uses Indigenous watercraft and knowledge of water traditions in Indigenous countries for community engaged research, teaching, and community building. Next slide. One of about 3 major projects that we're involved in is called Back to Indigenous Futures. There's a big Micronesian community in a town called Milan, Minnesota, about 3 hours west of the Twin Cities campus. And though the community is about 300 people, they constitute about 2/3 of the population of that town, rural town. They're also, that town is also right there in a place called Yellow Medicine, where they dig for yellow medicine, which is where one finds the Upper Sioux Indigenous Dakota community, and then a little further down, Lower Sioux community. The Back to Indigenous Futures project uses canoe building and learning about water traditions in ways that put the Micronesians and the Dakota folks together, learning about each other's traditions. But it also, the project also brings an interdisciplinary team of humanities, social sciences, Native scholars, and STEM folks, folks in science and technology and art and design, to imagine new ways of doing academic knowledge that's accountable to Indigenous resurgence and efforts to build Indigenous communities. I'm going to, one of the other things that we're doing here is exploring what happens when we put traditional technology and knowledge systems like voyaging and canoe building with virtual reality and augmented and mixed reality. Next slide. So we have, we now have virtual voyaging, the ability to get on a Micronesian canoe.
Turn the canoe
And
completely
steer the
around,
canoe, pull the sail in, all in virtual reality. In
remember, you have to keep your outrigger on the windward
in an
side.
environment that replicates the Chuk Lagoon and the rising and setting stars there, so we can learn. Next slide. So and go ahead and play this. Just press it. This is what she was looking at. We have a virtual canoe. You can pull the line in, and the sail opens up, and we programmed in the actual stars, the night stars, to learn about this. And one of the things we're doing is working to transition this piece to Dakota rivers, lakes, prairies, to bring or close the gap between the two peoples, their knowledge of waters and stars and clouds and the two landscapes. And all of this is understood as a trans-Indigenous project that involves Indigenous peoples displaced in the diaspora, working closely with their Indigenous hosts to model Indigenous relations and logics and ethics of accountability as opposed to settler colonial relations. So I think that's enough for now. I want to say thank you to Dakota for inviting me. Actually, I'm really flattered to think that someone my age might have some relevance for a group of young, much younger artists and activists and writers and performers. So thank you.
And now everyone take a few deep breaths and get ready for Etak.
Woke up in Lenape Hokin, breathing in a breeze my Rowdy posted from a relative inspired by the elements that raised me. My mother's water broke on this sacred sailor sea, where Papa found a plot to propagate a garden, where my umbilical departed and my fontanelle had hardened up my soul, where I learned to flow with J, Rain, Dia, Chris, Canary, Sing, Ab, Creole, Line Road. Now I'm sipping Setsy Beast at a cafe down the road, stretching from across the Rainbow Bridge to home. Soul imbued prayer, sitting kutsi, huida, aoba, sitting umisa. I'm drinking loose leaf tea made of rooibos from the Khoisan mountaintops, where we partied with Zulus and clairvoyants, feeling buoyant as the clouds gathered, winds booking a howl tattered by the ground's patterns. There was cliff lines of fresh springs, refreshing the homies and knowing me with Choni across the globe, connecting through investing in flowing prayers in ancient tongues, letting them heal what was done to us. Spirit runs through us in thunderous rhythms, risen from soil our skin is akin to. From Sweden, Ojibwe, Yoruba, and every country I've been to, blood memory lives through every trauma it's been through. So watch the space, the sacred fire's flame is blue and purple, drawing circles of the old ones, because they told us we've been chosen as sinew. Uniting the bones and the muscles, the stone doesn't struggle, owns the role in the puzzle alone, or in bundles birthing twins when they crumble in the lodge. Sweat drippings from my eyebrows as I'm singing these songs. The spirit in you knows ritual is never lost, so hold a shard and carry on with our chants to the gods, putting headphones on to block the pause, clawing at my thoughts, relatives relating through trauma's laws, a sense of loss since my sack man's been off. A navigator cursed by homeland's crossbearers. I'm unaware of what it is to be from here, they say, as if my inability to be welcomed here vacates the lineage of this Indian city kid with the namesake of a tribe I'll find in dreamtime. Amatakite say. My body's an estuary, my blood is a tributary, Gihadza and missionary with the vision of lifting every prayer to his creator in a dance step. If culture's caught in a static, then I advance it. I never hold up in a holder. G-caps, capoeira, Angola, Dakota. Train the spirit every day, porque yo soy guerrero danzante. Ashe.
Let's just take that in for a minute. Let's take a deep breath. Earth, my body, water, my blood, air, my breath, and fire, my spirit. Body is earth, the color of home. Sunlight spreads across the water and turns the ocean blue. We ripple across the ocean. We break on many shores. We break on many shores. Beautiful work, Dakota. I felt like I needed to totoko that with a song. There's just so much that I felt in receiving that piece of art. I'll share that I keep thinking of the late, great music composer, Hirini Melbourne from Aotearoa, who talked about how the Maori world came into being as the chants brought in the light. And I felt the resonance of your spoken word, the spirituality of the cadence and the rhythm. I also could not help but to feel the Black aesthetic, the funk kind of hidden in that. The drum that we can't necessarily hear, but it's in the movement, it's in the earth. And yeah, to just also, kind of loop back to what I was saying about some of the discoveries that I made when I was in Aotearoa, New Zealand, in the work that I did with Maori artists, and particularly Dr. Charles Royal, who led the revival of the Whare Tapare, which loosely translates into the house of the arts, or the performing arts, and that one of the functions, the purpose of art for Indigenous people is to become sensory alive, to wake up our senses, to spiritually invest in ourselves, in our communities, through our artistic practice. And when we say ourselves, our communities, we include the land, right? We are the land. And then the last thing that I would say again is that the embodiment of that Black Pacific whanauna tanga that I feel represented in your work, Dakota. The way in which the Black aesthetic is engaging in contributing, I should say, to the evolution of Indigenous art, and particularly in the Pacific. I think that there's an important sort of unpacking and flushing out of that relationship that needs more of our attention. And I know that you're doing that work so beautifully. So congratulations on your premiere of Eh-tack.
Sana Masi, Dakota, for sharing this gift of your creation. And, you know, watching it, just seeing, you know, your movement in these sites, this very site specific project that you're moving through, and the light and the darkness and your words, and even the images of pottery and just this beautiful pristine landscape in the beginning. There's just so many things that come to mind, so many things, so many emotions are, you know, are awakened when watching this film. But definitely something that's very striking to me in the film is the part where you're in that vacant concrete space and you're walking through very calmly, and you're looking around and you seem a little curious or confused. And I know that when we first talked about this, the very first time I saw this film, there was no context given, but I immediately thought about sites of war. And maybe this might be a site, a military site. I thought, is this a closed military base? Is this a site of military contamination? Because as beautiful as the beginning is, and as, you know, as quiet and as peaceful as the beginning is, the site that you are engaging with, suddenly you're in a cold, static site. And it made me think about how in Guam there are all these beautiful sacred places where we go to connect with our ancestors, but unfortunately and very sadly, our people are probably more familiar with the sites of war, the ruins of war that are in our landscape here, from both the occupation, the invasion and occupation by Japanese forces at the beginning of the war for us here, World War II, but also with the violent recapture and continued violence of American military occupation here in Guam. And so I really just want to thank you for making this and for sharing this with all of us this evening. And those are just some thoughts I have about your film, Sanamasi Chelu.
Thank you. Wow. It's just really making me, there's so many different places I'd love to engage with in this conversation. Primarily, I love that this is a narrative around navigation and finding your way, you know, and you have to know where you come from in order to know where you're going, and you have to know what and where in relationship you are to things. So I like this triangulation. I like the embedded aspects of that, and also just the visualization, even this concrete embankment, you know, that's exhibited in these relics of war, you know, as a space or development or whatever context would put, you know, concrete in such a lush and beautiful place. It also makes me think that it's falling apart, you know, it is disintegrating. There's so much effort that we have to do to maintain the lack of life in spaces, you know, that life generates, and it will overtake concrete and sites of war and every echo of our folly and mistake. And I love how this has a narrative of this kind of intercultural connectivity, because they done screwed up and treated us all the same way in different ways, and in doing so created a union of experience that becomes something to coalesce and to gel around when we talk about our relationships to colonialization, when we talk about our relationships to marginalization. I think in this narrative, it's also a recognition that, you know, even at this point, I am many different people, and we are all many different people, and we have always been many different people. So I think it's beautiful to amplify that and to talk about that in these spaces. So thank you, Dakota. I really appreciate it.
Dakota, can you queue up the first video clip in part 2 of my slide? It's the canoe. Yeah, and go ahead and play that. Listening to Watkins' piece, Dakota's piece, really brought back a really powerful statement, quote by the late Teresia Taiwa, who was such a dear friend and sister, and shout out to her son Manoa in the audience, who I saw a little earlier. But Teresia had once written, we went looking for roots and we discovered routes. And I want to share 3 vignettes that that illustrate to me how what you produce, Dakota, how what you produce continues a very remarkable arc of Pacific indigeneity that reaches back to 4,000 to 6,000 years ago, that foregrounds the absolute necessity to theorize and perform roots in relation to routes. Roots being deep connection to specific places for which our vernaculars are known and which indigeneity is best known for. The idea of deep connection to a specific place that connotes antiquity, deep time as well. But that's a connection to place, and that place in particular that furnishes us with the basis of how we can claim a difference and a uniqueness and a specificity. But that connection to deep place, to depth, that is captured in the word roots, is also always hitched for indigenous people like Pacific Islanders in a vast ocean world, always hitched to roots, R-O-U-T-E-S, or routes. And if roots is vertical depth to specific place, routes captures the histories, the technologies, the discourses, the abilities, and the knowledge systems that make possible mobility and travel. Roots and routes are constitutive of Pacific indigeneity, whereas colonial discourse always tended to favor and associate natives with roots, R-O-O-T-S. Colonial discourse tends to keep routes and mobility and travel for itself erroneously. And if it ever grants routes or mobility to natives, it's in a way that's deficit. For example, the idea of natives as hunters and gatherers and roamers was a way that colonialism legitimized taking the land, because that the people were not using it adequately, or to posit rootedness in specific places and time so deeply that to introduce mobility is to essentially have natives forfeit their authenticity. And so returning roots and routes together is an absolutely important part of the analysis. That is an absolutely important part of decolonization. Across the Pacific, stories of origins and deep rootedness in place have always, across all of the Pacific, have always also included old stories about travel. We all talk about canoes in our origin stories coming from somewhere else, but all of us also have narratives of autogenesis, of coming from that place and only that place. And in fact, not only coming from our island, but claiming that all the rest of the world and all other people and all other languages originated in our own island. Whatever you have to say about that, both of these from the get-go emphasize the necessity of keeping roots and routes together to capture the power and the dynamics of indigenous flourish. I noted that I had a couple of examples to give. I'll just give one now in the interest of time. Sam Lowe is a Kanaka Maoli. He produced the film The Navigator. It was the first film about the Hokulea, came out in 1982, 83, around there. And he recently wrote a book called Hawaiki Rising. And he has this wonderful observation about the canoe. And he says, the canoe invites the crew to dance. And what he means by that is if you spend time on a canoe, you start learning to move with it. But moving with it is an example of what Ojeya mentioned as the need to develop our bodies to the level of to the level of fine instrumentation that our ancestors had. Moving with the canoe is one of the ways that you're able to or choreographing or dancing on a canoe is one of the ways that you're able to discern directionality, because waves and swells associated with stars to give you directions, rising and setting stars, are also less seen than felt. And if you know your, if you're able to sort of be attuned with your canoe, your body becomes one with the canoe, you're able to discern the distinct swells and waves that are out there that will allow you to be able to know in what directions you have to head, including how the waves and swells bend and deflect around islands. So the image that I gave, the clip that I shared raises yet another instance where another observer, a guy named Ken Brower, in talking about how the Micronesian canoes were steered, where the person sits in the back and has his leg out, controlling the fatul, the paddle. He said, you know, when you see things like this, you begin to get a sense that one doesn't know where the body ends and the ocean begins. And when you think about what Sam said about the canoe inviting people to dance, you also have to think about the body merging with the canoe or the craft, so that you don't know where the human body begins and ends, and where the canoe begins and ends, and where those two end and the ocean begin. That's an example right there of radical relationality, where humans, objects, landscapes, and all other living forms and that are other than human forms that build a sense of what it means to be human through relations of kinship and relations of mutual care. And so the blurring of the lines between a material canoe and a human and an ancestor called the ocean. Your piece follows in that that long arc of indigenous oceanic routes and routes. Thank you. Do I have time to say something about this image?
Yes.
I don't want to take other people's times. So this very, very quickly, this map is one of my most favorite maps ever. I use it in almost all of my publications. It comes in the late, I'm drawing a blank, but a book about Polynesian revival, sailing in the wake of the ancestors. But this is a map of the Pacific on the right side. You see the familiar Polynesian triangle. You see Melanesia above Australia in the middle, and all the dots up there are Micronesia. Most of you know how big the Pacific Island is, the Pacific Ocean is. You can combine all land masses and all other bodies of water together, and still the Pacific Ocean region is larger than that. So Oceania is huge, and 500 years before Columbus, we have strong evidence from various registers that Pacific Islanders reached the Americas. For those of you who are not familiar with how big the Pacific is, up there in the upper right-hand corner, you can take a flight from California to Hawaii. And if you have the winds behind you, it's about 5.5 hours by plane. Another 9.5 hours from Hawaii to Guam. And half of the Micronesian region alone is larger than the continental United States. So we had the ability to travel this huge expanse 4,000 to 6,000 years ago. But this map shows the coincidence of the spread of outrigger sailing canoes and Austronesian languages, of which most of our languages are a part. And when you include that peoplehood and that diaspora 4,000 to 6,000 years ago, it reaches all the way to the east coast of Africa, coastal areas of South Asia, Madagascar. This is our map. This is our world. This is over almost 2/3 of the oceans of the globe's water world. We were trekking around here, speciating, making relatives and forming new identities 4,000 to 6,000 years ago. Roots and routes. This is the map of our history that colonialism basically tried to shut down. Thanks.
Beautiful. Man, Vince, if you had a class, I would definitely take it. I'm just saying.
You can. Online now.
You know, man, there was just so much in that. Dakota, thank you so much for bringing us all together. I think that this whole presentation was a really brilliant way to present this new work, because by having all of these different voices, it contextualized your work in a really unique way that I don't think one person would have been able to, you know? So I just want to, you know, give you props for that. I didn't have so much of a response as much as watching it just made me want to have a conversation with you. So at the very last minute, I was like, Dakota, what if I just interviewed you as a response? And Dakota was down. So thank you for being down to improvise with me. Yeah, so when I watched it, the very first thing that stuck out to me was the references to South Africa, the Khoisan references, the Zulu references, also as the I'm more lyrical, so I think of the words, first. Ending with some Spanish words, mini wachoni, water's life being in the middle of it, all these different pieces that you've narrated in there. And one of my deepest beliefs about solidarity is that solidarity is about knowing yourself, and I know that because I know you, that these references that are just like small lyrical references and small language references come from actual real relationships that you've made with people in your travels around the world. I guess I want to ask you, like, what does it mean for you to build real solidarity with all of these people who you are referencing in your lyrics? Because it's a lot of different movements. It's a lot of different people.
Beautiful. Beautiful question. Thank you. For me, I think kinship, relationship, is the groundwork in which solidarity happens. Relationship is the place where we get to test out and try out, getting to contradict the messages of oppression that keep us apart. And they're also the spaces where accountability comes to life. And so I think when I think about these different movements and moments and peoples and nations, to me, there are ways of being that are encoded in each of these communities, that are resonant with my ancestral worldview and way of being. And I think that at the core of these movements is at the core of what our peoplehood, our nationhood has always been, which is to live in good relationships with each other and with the land and waters and elements. And part of the references to these different places and spaces and communities is for me to kind of keep track of the lessons that I've learned in each of these places that have kind of fine-tuned how I express that in my understanding of what it means to be human in this moment in time. And you talked about one of the first things that stuck out to you was the references to the Khoisan, and I had a beautiful, incredible experience there that completely changed my understanding of what it means to be human, because Kunque, who also goes by Braglox, said to everybody that was gathered there, "You all came from us," very, very clearly and with 1,000% conviction, and taught us the prayer that was recited in that piece that says, to the Creator, may all the people of the earth unite through our ancestral heritages. And to me, that is what it means to be in solidarity.
Say that. I don't know if you're down to do this, but I'm curious for a lyrical breakdown, like how many languages did you reference in that one verse? Because I know a lot of it goes in a lot of people's heads, because it's just like a line in this language, a line in that language.
I'd have to redo it and count. Woke up in Lenape Hokin, breathing in the breeze that my Telerati posted from a relative, inspired by the elements that raised me. My mother's water broke in the sacred Salish Sea, where Papa found a plot to propagate a garden where my umbilical departed and my fontanelle had hardened on my soul, where I learned to flow with J Rain, Díaz, Chris Canary, sing ab Creole long road. Now I'm sipping Setsy Beast at a cafe down the road, stretching from Web across the Rainbow Bridge to home. Soul and beauty prayers, see the Kutsi, Huida, Haubas, Umisa, I'm drinking loose leaf tea made of rooibos from the Khoisan mountaintop, where we party with the Zulus and clairvoyants, feeling buoyant as the clouds gathered, windspoken, a howl tattered by the ground's patterns. There was clip lines of fresh springs, refreshing the homies and knowing, meaning with Choni across the globe, we connecting through investing and flowing. Prayers in ancient tongues, letting them heal what was done to us. Spirit runs through us with thunderous rhythms, risen from soil our skin is akin to, from Sweden, Ojibwe, Eora, in every country I've been to. Blood memory lives through every trauma it's been through. So watch this space, the sacred fire's flame is blue and purple, drawing circles of the old ones because they told us we've been chosen to sinew, uniting the bones and the muscles. The stone doesn't struggle alone or in bundles. The stone doesn't crumble alone or in bundles, birds and twins when they crumble in the lodge. Sweat dripping from my eyebrows as I'm singing these songs. The spirit in you knows ritual is never lost, so hold a shard and carry on with our chance to the gods, putting headphones on to block the pause, climb down my thoughts, relatives relating through trauma's laws. I sense a loss since my sack man's been off. A navigator's cursed by homeland's cross-bearers. I'm unaware of what it is to be from here. They say as if my inability to be welcomed here vacates the lineage of this Indian city kid with the namesake of a tribe I'll find in dream time. I'm out to keep they say. My body's an estuary, my blood is a tributary, jihadist and missionary with the vision of lifting every prayer to creator in a dance step. If culture's caught in a static, then I advance. Sit, I never hold up in a holder. G-caps, capoeira, Angola, Dakota, train the spirit every day, porque yo soy guerrero danzante. Ashe.
16? Was that 16? Oh man. And I, it's just ill to me because like that means like for every single one of those there's a whole story attached to like that one word, that one sentence. You know what I mean? Yeah. I know. Was this is this video part of a longer piece?
Yes. This piece is so what we saw tonight is actually just the teaser of the short film. And Footsum and I are working on the longer piece right now, but it's a part of a bigger project called Mali'i, which is a performance research project that I've been using to understand what it means to be a human being and to be in, this, it's basically a meditation on this question you asked me. What does it mean? What does it mean to be in solidarity with all of life in a truly accountable and ethical way?
That part.
And so this piece is, the Eh-tack is one creative outcome in a series of questions and explorations that I've been asking myself about. And so, yeah, and the next iteration of it actually, and a couple of people on the call tonight, including Monaeka and Ojeya, are going to be invited. There's a mapped out Chamorro cohort of people that are coming together to engage with this methodology that was created for this film and for the Mali'i project, to kind of ask these questions and delve deeper into how each of our experiences inform our understanding of each other, our understanding of how we can be Indigenous in a truly loving and justice building way.
That's what it is. I'm excited to see the growth and to, and to see how it all evolves. That's all I really wanted to ask, be honest with you.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. We are getting close to the end of the event tonight, and I just want to give my big gratitude to all of the witnesses that shared their perspectives in response to the film. I want to give my big gratitude to everybody that's here right now, that's tuned in on YouTube or Facebook and here in the Zoom room. And I wanted to remind everyone to, leave a message of what's resonating with you in your heart in the community conversation board. But before we split from the Zoom room, I'm gonna invite everybody to just get into a little breakout room and have an opportunity to share with what's resonating on your heart right now. And I think there's gonna be 3 of us in the room, in each room. And so I'll just invite you all to take about 3 minutes each, share the space and share the time and open up. All right. Miga and Ma'asi to you all. Zoom Wizard, if you can take us away.
With the with the also the artists or
Nope.
no? Okay.
Are all the artists still gonna hang out for the folks in YouTube and Facebook world? Is that the plan?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm gonna need a second.
All right, that's totally cool. In the meantime, does anybody have a question? Something to share that's bubbling up?
And there was a question actually about if Vince, Sina Vince teaches classes that maybe they could share.
That's a great question. Go ahead.
Most of our classes have been online async now, and really the best thing to do is, I'm not really supposed to do this, but if you email me, just go to the University of Minnesota Twin Cities American Indian Studies site webpage, and you can find me there. Email me, and I can sneak you in an online class. Don't tell our university.
All right, I'm gonna open the rooms.
Love it.
Thank you so much. All right. People are getting beamed up.
He said roots and roots. That was tight.
So we have a few minutes here, those of us that are left, artists, witnesses, and respondents, to just to respond to each other as well. And I think this would be a dope time for the people that are tuned in. We've got about 30 people tuned in on YouTube and Facebook, just to be able to have a chance to listen to, what you all are thinking about hearing each other's perspectives, and sharing some responses to the film. I think that would be really beautiful.
First of all, I want to say congratulations again to Dakota. Beautiful work. Really, really beautiful. I'm so glad that Gabriel pointed out the references to indigenous languages from all over the world, because I do think that the embodiment and the recognition and the bringing together of of all of those references it provokes unity, so really, really gorgeous. I mean, I was just so touched by everyone's sharing and all of the unique perspectives in terms of the reads and the responses to your work. And yeah, it's just been so cool to meet all of you. Well, Monaeka and Vince, we've known each other, but the rest of you who I'm meeting for the first time, it's really cool to feel the extended Dakota community out there. So thank you all.
The Dakota community, I love it.
Did we lose Vince? You think? Did Vince have to go?
I'm not sure. I'm texting Vince now.
I think Vince might be in a Zoom room, but we have another person with us. Hi, Pi Palomo. You're in our. If you want to respond to any of this, please join in with us. Thank you for being here with us.
Okay. Hey, how's it going? Sorry, I was actually distracted, furiously emailing Vince about his online classes before I forgot. Yeah, wow, Dakota, I really had no idea what to expect. I was just kind of like saw this happening online, and I'm so glad that I joined in. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have anything particularly analytical to say about it. It was just really, really moving. And I don't know. I just being in this diaspora, and especially in this kind of in this COVID world where all of a sudden the accessibility between all of us has like really, really grown and flourished and bloomed in this last year. And so all of these just, I mean, I feel like these little tendrils that go out throughout the community. It's like, it's just so like reinforcing in a way that is really hard to describe actually. But yeah, thank you so much, so much.
Yeah.
Awesome.
What I'm thinking. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just thinking, you know, I was Vince's student. I took introduction. I took a Guam history class with Vince at University of Guam. And I became friends with Tina. And I took a class eventually with Tina and Kyoko on Pacific Museum Studies by Kyoko. And then I met Dakota as an exchange student, right, Dax, when you came to Gohan for the first time. And I think you came to Vince's book launch that we hosted. And that's where I met you. You were asking us for the sandwiches for the dorm. And my boss, who wasn't a very nice lady, didn't want to give you the sandwiches. And I was like, give him the sandwiches. You know? And anyway, it's just so interesting. Just all the journeys we've been on together. And then of course I met Ojeya and at FestPack, and we all went to Pride together at the Glow. So it's just so beautiful to see us all coming together, and it's really just an honor to share space with all of you. So thank you so much. It's just it's kind of I'm having a bit of a trip down memory lane, I guess. You know.
Yeah, to me, that goes back to that question Gabriel asked about what it means to be in solidarity. And it's like, if somebody has some food that they're not going to do anything with, give it to the people that could use it, like all of the Micronesian students at the dorm. To me, that's really, really basic. And
I remember that struggle. You were like, "Can I take this back to dorm?" I was like, "Yeah," and she was like, "Wait a second." I was like, "What? Why? Give him take it to the sandwiches." Anyway, so it's funny. I think that was at Vince's book launch actually. So
yeah,
funny, good times.
It was.
That's tight. What I'm thinking about right now is how Vince was talking about, reclaiming routes, and that is a simple but kind of new way to like just put words to it that, like, of course we've been traveling this whole globe, like people of color, indigenous folks, since time immemorial. And it is such a colonizing thought that like we weren't already connected, you know what I mean? So to reclaim that, migration is natural from way back when, it's just such a cool thing to like explore. Like I want to dive real deep into that rabbit hole. That's why I was like, man, what's up? Can I take your class?
Yeah, I think that's really fascinating. I have a background in ceramics, and I think about how clay has moved all over. Like the planet itself is shifting and moving. We have this history of movement and migration is much older than the human experience. This is a relationship that is old, real old. And I think we remember that oftentimes, like we have memory, not just blood memory, but earth memory. We have memory of being a part of this place, and I always I always think about that in relationship to ceramics and people and these different relationships, that there's always movement, that's a part of it. It's always in flux. Nothing is the way we experience it through like academia and other spaces where it's described, but it's in flow, that it's always in movement. So we can't ever understand it. We're creating it right now. This is what it looks like. This is solidarity, So thank you all. Love that.
And that is a beautiful place. Where I would like to land our canoe tonight is by inviting the folks that have been so beautifully taking in and receiving, just to see if anybody has anything that's on their hearts that needs to be shared in the space before we close. And I think we'll have time for about 3 short sharings if people feel called to share anything that's resonating with their mouth and their words. And I'm a champion at silence, so I'll just take a few deep breaths and invite people into this space.
Hello?
We can hear.
Hi. I was talking to this with Bonnie of what I got from your piece, and when I was listening to it, and even though it was a former rap, and then you were being you talked about how many of the groups of people you have in your piece, and then it struck me that it was a form of storytelling, and in your story, and I'm thinking, and for me, when I listen to my elders, and hearing my heritage is usually from verbal and from story class. But how you put it, and it's in a rap form, it's more for for a new different media to express where you came from. And I'm thinking, as this form of media, like maybe in your children's children will remember their great grandfather. Oh, that's where I came from. So it's another form of record keeping of where you came from. They know where they came from, but it's a new media in rap. So they can go on the computer and say, oh, this is where my great came from. So I just thought that was very interesting in a way to just keep your heritage and your ancestry alive. So that's what I got from it. It was very powerful, instead of just, oh, it's not just verbal from my elders anymore. It's, we can do something about where we came from. We can do record keeping too in any media and art form. So that really resonated with me.
Incredible.
Manoa.
Hello. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Do we have sound?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, looks like he froze.
Yep. Okay. I feel a little bit overwhelmed. To have so many people all in one space, to have access to so many people and at one point of time. So, like, obviously I want to just say hello to everyone and thank you. Just a huge thank you. I was just saying to Maria, in the small room, how thankful I am for all the work that so many of you have done to bring us to this space now. I feel like a lot of emotion, so I don't want that to be the main thing, but it is the main thing because I think something like this saves lives, it saves future lives, it saves space, it saves time, and it not only does it save those things, but it creates and grows all of those things, especially for myself, and especially for us as global communities now. Really am overwhelmed. I'm super overwhelmed. And it's been so long since I've seen like Uncle Vince or like Ojeya. The last time I saw Ojeya was like in
Samoa. Right?
Samoa, and I was just like, yeah. And Dakota probably saw me at a better time. So I'm so glad that I made it. I'm so sorry, Ojeya. But yeah, like just over here, you know what I'm saying? So it sounds like we all have share a really amazing friend. And I would love to actually have in real life collaborations, although I'm just so proud. Like, this is such a good example of like moving through, breaking those barriers of reality that that we should be able to do easily. But the film, I'm really looking forward to the full film. I think the teaser was enough to like have like hours of conversation, but I'm just gonna keep it brief. I'm just gonna keep it brief and say thanks. Yeah. And Ojeya, your voice. Do you have an album out already? Stop. Okay, that's it. That's it. Thank you. I hope to meet you all in real life.
I just want to say quick that I'm really blown away by the incredible amount of talent that you all have. It's just phenomenal, and it's going to take me days to process all of this, how wonderful it was, and to put it all into words. But it's incredible. Thank you.
So unless there's somebody whose heart is jumping out of their body and wants to speak, I'm going to take this opportunity to invite us to close and thank everybody for witnessing tonight, and for bringing your beautiful faces, energies, your names inside the Zoom boxes. Thank you for engaging with each other, for bringing your ancestors here. You know, witnessing and exchanging perspective is something that to me as an Indigenous person is so crucial. You know, that we get to share how we're feeling. You know, emotions are intelligence. And so I just thank you, Manoa, for bringing that into the space as well. And I there's not much more I can say, but migai ma'asi, immense gratitude to you all. And I would like to invite us to close tonight. And actually, I didn't ask you beforehand, Anne, but I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind closing us out with a prayer song. And if this feels like absolutely no Dakota, feel free to say that to me too. But I wanted to ask if you might do that.
You know, Godson, I cannot say no to you. But let me sit for a minute and see what comes. I'm going to borrow a verse of a song from Buffy St. Marie. We are family, family together. We are singing, singing our heart song. This is family, this is community, this is celebration, this is sacred.
Migai Ma'asi, and for closing us out. That was a beautiful way to close us out. And Migai Ma'asi to everyone that is here. May you go off into dreamland tonight, filled with so much good energy and with a loving embrace of your ancestors and the loving embrace of the land that's holding you now. Migama Asi.
Ashiyo.